All right, so let's skip the small talk, get straight to it. The reason why I make most of these videos is really just to make them for uh, myself, just so I can have a reminder for the future. All right, and really just to make these videos for my past self. All right, so anyone else that was kind of in that position I was in. All right, and what I wish someone would have told me, or honestly, what I wish the advice I would have listened to. So, this is one of the main ones. Would be the power of one. So the understanding of why sticking to a single strategy is probably obviously the most important thing for a trader. All right, it's the number one reason most traders do fail to become profitable. Is really just the failure to commit to a single strategy over a long period of time. All right, so overview of what we're going to go over in this video is one, the problem why most traders fail, why sticking to one strategy works, and the benefits of sticking to one strategy, what happens when you don't commit, how to pick the right strategy, all right, and then how to stay disciplined and committed. All right, so let's jump into it. So the first problem is why most traders fail. So it's really just in our nature to switch strategies as soon as we are met with resistance or failure. All right, and the reason for that is obviously when we're growing up in school, we're not always taught that we're always taught that failure is bad. All right, so if you get a mistake on a test or you're penalized for something, the wrong answers lower your grade, and then we're rewarded when we get things right for the first time, right? So if you get an F, that's considered a failure. You get a D, that's considered a failure. All right, and then for however long we're in school, right? Obviously, those actions stack up, and then that's kind of what we are taught to transfer over into real life scenarios. All right, and these conditions lead us to avoid failure at all costs. All right, so we're also taught to lean into our strengths and avoid our weaknesses. All right, so when we do encounter resistance, struggle, or have early losses in our trading journey, our brain interprets that as a sign that we must be, or that the strategy is wrong, or even worse, that we're just not cut out for trading in altogether. All right, so it'll just feel a lot more safer for us to pivot. All right, and then with trading, the reason why it's one of the hardest skills to learn is because you have to do the complete opposite, right? So normally, since we're taught to lean into our strengths and avoid our weaknesses, if we are jumping into a strategy and we're not getting the results we want right off the bat, it's just in our nature to find the next best strategy, when that is the complete opposite of what we need to be doing when it comes to trading. All right, so in trading, failure is feedback. It's not a sign to quit, it's a sign to learn. But most traders never make the mindset shift. Instead, they fall into the cycle of strategy hopping, so jumping from ICT, SMC, support resistance, trend lines, whatever strategy they find for the month. All right, chasing what feels easy or exciting, never realizing that mastery is born in the boring, painful parts where growth happens. All right, so your brain is wired to protect you from situations that previously caused stress or emotional pain. Right, so if you get punched in the nose, right, obviously it's gonna hurt, and if you see that same punch coming again, it's just a natural reaction to duck. All right, so if you took a major loss using a specific strategy, maybe even went on tilt and blew multiple funded accounts. All right, so we've all been there, blew a couple accounts. Your brain starts to associate that strategy with danger. All right, and it links it to failure, regret, and emotional trauma. Naturally, it wants to protect you by steering you away from that pain, even if the strategy itself wasn't the problem. All right, and that's when the cycle starts and the search for the new holy grail begins, and it begins all over again. All right, so it's a circle. It's a repeated action that most traders tend to do. All right, so you start with ICT, and then let's say you're seeing a lot of people on Reddit posting their wins, or people on Top Step or on YouTube posting their wins, and then they're using ICT. All right, and then you aren't getting those exact results in the first week, or let's say a month if you even stick with it that long, and then you think that it's not working for you, and then you switch to, let's say, support and resistance or trend lines because you've seen a specific person on YouTube that uses trend lines and is having a lot of success with it, and then you try that, and then that doesn't work, and then it just keeps on going and keeps on going. All right, so most traders have been in the game for 5 to 10 years, but they spend the majority of that time, often 80%, bouncing from strategy to the next. All right, I was one of those guys. It's not until the final 1 to 3 years that things start to click. That's when they commit to one single strategy, start journaling their trades, making those small, thoughtful adjustments based on the real data that they've gathered. And that's when consistency and profitability begins. All right, now normally what usually happens is you are trying to trade for those however long, 5 to 10 years, right? And then you're going from strategy to strategy, and eventually you kind of just hit a plateau, or you kind of just get exhausted, right? And you're like, you know what, I'm gonna just try this last strategy and I'm gonna try and make it work. And then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I'm done with it, right? But that last strategy is the one that you're willing to actually stick with for a long period of time, because you said it's either this one or nothing, right? And then you end up sticking with it, you refine it over time, and then that's when you start to become profitable, and then you start to become consistent, and then all those dreams and goals that you had previously are starting to come into fruition because you decided to finally stick with one strategy. All right, so why sticking to one strategy works. All right, so I want you to imagine a race between two people. All right, and let's say the prize obviously is $10,000, and the task is to be the first to chop down the tree. All right, now contestant A is obviously strong. They have all the tools to win. All right, they've been in the gym. They got the six-pack abs. They got the big biceps. Look like a bodybuilder. All right, but every time he swings, or his swing isn't perfect, he decides to abandon that tree that he started on and go find a new one, right? He wants every swing to be perfect, right? Because in his mind, if he doesn't have the perfect swing, then he needs to go start all over again, right? While contestant B, on the other hand, doesn't look much of a threat, doesn't look like they spend any time in the gym, all right? They're majority of the time, they're just hanging out, not doing much. He's not the strongest or the fastest, but one thing that he does have that contestant A doesn't have is he's focused and he's willing to stay consistent on one task, all right? So no matter how tough it gets, he sticks with the same tree and keeps chipping away, right? So if obviously contestant B is the one who would win, all right? Now the reason why is because he stuck with that one tree, all right? He didn't switch from tree to tree. He stuck with that one tree no matter how bad of a swing he had or how strong of a swing he had. It didn't matter. He just stuck with that one tree until he reached the end goal, and then that end goal was winning the entire contest and walking away with the money, right? While contestant A was probably confused on how he lost to someone who didn't look the part, and at the end of the day, it's because he just couldn't focus on one tree. All right, and the same goes for trading, because in the end, it's not about the talent or tools. It's mainly about your consistency and your commitment to one strategy and just refining it over time. All right, so this is exactly what it looks like with trading. So instead of switching from instead of sticking with one trade or one single axe to hit one single tree, we decided to jump through 100 different courses, 100 different gurus, 100 different YouTube channels, in hopes that we're going to find that one strategy that's going to net us the profit that we want for the month, and then that will be our holy grail, right? But in all reality, the best way to find your holy grail is to stick with one strategy and just refine it over time. All right, so if you collect data on 100 plus trades, journal every single trade, all right? Journal your emotions within the trade and understand why it didn't work or why it did work. Then refine your edge and do it all over again. It's pretty much impossible for you not to see results if you continuously and vigorously are refining your edge and finding the kinks in your strategy and then finding what works and what doesn't work. All right, so the Holy Grail is not a specific strategy that you'll find on YouTube. The Holy Grail is built through the actions before and after the trade more than it is during the trade. All right, so it's how you are doing your analysis before the trade, all right, your top-down analysis, your thought process going into the trade. How are you analyzing the setups for the trade? If you do take a loss, how do you react to it? Are you being calm when you're doing your analyzations for the market before it opens? All right, so are you not taking any impulse trades? And then after, are you journaling the trades? Are you making sure that you're writing all the notes that need to be done? Or once you take a loss, you're just packing up shop and then calling it a day, right? So there's more that goes into it than just trading. Trading is just half of the battle, all right? So if you think about it like someone who's in the gym, all right, or someone who competes, when they go and compete and they're doing the strongman contest or they're on stage and trying to see who wins, all right, now that's the easy part, right? So the preparation and comes in the diet, and then all the days and the weight room lifting and defining their bodies, right? So it's the same with trading. So that win on the day, that should be the easy part. Finding the setups, that should be the easy part. All right, now the hard part is refining your strategy, all right, and then dealing with the losses and the mental and the emotions that come with trading before and after. All right, so what happens when you don't commit? Now, every trader has had that day. One bad trade leads to a tilt, all right, and then before you know it, the entire account's blown. I've had it. Some of my friends that I talked to that trade, they also had it, right? So if you're taking evals or you've taken prop firms, I feel like everybody's had that situation when they've came close to passing the eval, right? They maybe have another $200-300 left. They take one trade, that one trade, they lose 300, and they're like, all right, I gotta win it back. I want to pass today. Lose another 300, 400, 500. Next thing you know, the entire account is gone, and then now you got to deal with that emotional damage and emotional stress over these next couple of days. That's just gonna stack up for when you try and take another evaluation or when you enter the next trading day. All right, so imagine this, but you've tested your strategy over 300 to 1,000 trades, all right, and then it's proven that it has a win rate of 80%. And then you know that it typically takes you about 2 days to bounce back from a big loss, or 5 to 8 trades to recover from a full drawdown. All right, so if you had that level of confidence and long-term perspective, then obviously these single losses wouldn't bother you as much, right? So if you just lean on your data, you would be less emotional within the trading day or within your trading session, right? So the reason why you do have these tilts or you do get very emotional over a big loss is because you don't know when you're going to make that loss back, right? So if you knew that you were going to make let's say you lost $1,000 and you knew over the next 3 trades that you can come out of that hole if you size down, all right, and that's usually how long it takes you to come out that hole and get back in profit, you're not going to really worry about having a big loss, right? Because you understand what the data says is that it takes around 2 to 3 days for you to recoup off of that loss and get back in profit, right? And same goes for you're in a long-term drawdown. All right, you just lean on the data, and the data will do its thing and kind of giving you some reassurance and making you comfortable for the following trades. All right, so the end result of a tilt is obviously you feeling like trading is not for you, since none of the strategies you've seen working for others have worked for you. And in reality, it could have worked for you just as well if you stuck with one strategy and just refined it over time, right? So you could have been seeing the same results others were seeing. All you have to do is be consistent and give it time. So let's say ICT, for example, right? I feel like that's a strategy most people are using and are having results with, right? So you may see a lot of people having results with ICT, and then let's say you try and go and use the same strategy, you give it 2 to 3 weeks, right? And you're not seeing the same results that everybody is seeing, so you feel like the strategy is not working. What you fail to realize is that the people who are using ICT and having great success with it, they have decided to stick with that strategy for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and refine it over time until they have that strategy and it fits for their persona, their trading style, and they're able to see the specific setups that they've trained their eyes to see over that long period of time of collecting data. And now they're starting to reap the rewards for the input that they put in. All right, so all that you really need to do is be willing to stick with one strategy and give it a good amount of time, collect data, refine it over time, and you'll be able to reap the same results. But a lot of people aren't willing to do that, and they would rather try and find a holy grail that they believe will give them results in a month or two, which is just not the case. All right, so how to pick the right strategy. Now, I dove deep into this in a previous video. All right, so I'll link that video in the description as well. But just to kind of go over it, just the steps that I went over in that video. So step 1, you want to define your purpose and mission. All right, so you want to have a good understanding of what it is that you actually want in life. So that way you can align your trading with those objectives. All right, and then you want to establish your objectives. And then you also want to know yourself. So if you aren't a very patient person, then maybe swing trading is not for you. All right, if you like to be in and out the markets, then intraday trading is for you. All right, now let's say if you don't like the very volatile market, then maybe NASDAQ is not for you. If you do like a volatile market, then NQ would be definitely be for you. All right, so and then next you want to determine your trading style. All right, then you want to create a system development plan. So you want to understand your entries, exits, the setups that you would take, your risk and reward. All right, you want to have your risk management set up. You want to define your position sizing strategies. All right, so if you're a one-to-one trader and you want to make around 500 on the day, if you know that you're making around $250 on a one-to-one with one contract, then it makes sense to add on another contract, so that way you're hitting your objective for the day and making 500. All right, so next you want to develop a risk management plan. All right, so you want to understand how much you're willing to risk on the day, and then how much you're willing to lose before you close up shop, and then kind of just call it a day. All right, and then also you want to monitor and evaluate performance, obviously, and then plan for continuous improvement. All right, so I'll tag the video in the description. All right, and then as well I'll try to attach it here on the video, so that way you can take a look at that once you're done with this video. All right, and now the main question a lot of people may have is how to stay disciplined and committed within a to one strategy. All right, so let me give you a good example. All right, so if I ask you to solve this math problem, so what's 383 multiplied by 400 minus 2, then divided by 3, and the thing is you can't use a calculator, you have to figure it out yourself. All right, so the first thing that you would do is probably grab a pencil and paper, write it out step by step, and work through the problem logically, right? That's the best way to do it. That's the way that everybody was taught growing up, and it just makes the most sense. All right, but the funny thing is, we naturally do this with a basic math equation, but we fail to do this when it comes to trading. And trading is obviously one of the hardest skills to learn. It's the most complex and emotionally demanding skills out there. All right, and it has a 90% of traders fail, so it makes sense not to wing it. All right, but that's what most traders do. They go in there, they wing it, they have no plan, no breakdown, no process. They kind of just go into the markets, and then they trade off of emotion. They feel like this is going to work instead of having the data that shows them that this is the probabilities of this working are within the specific range. All right, so that's the main problem that these traders are experiencing. Right, and that's why so many traders have emotional blowups and end up wiping their accounts. They're trading without a plan, without any structure, any real process. They don't have proof of concept backed by a large sample of trades, so they're flying in blind. All right. So discipline and commitment becomes a lot more easier when you actually have something to be committed to. All right. So if I can't be committed in a relationship if I'm not dating anybody, right? If I'm single, I don't have anybody to be committed to. I'm single, right? So it's the same thing with trading. If I have a checklist outlining my process and journal entries of past A+ setups, it becomes simple to stay grounded. I have something that I can be committed to. I have a plan that I can follow. All right. So if you have no diet, if you have no workout plan, then you don't have anything to really be committed to, anything that you can say, this is what I follow to get these results, right? So I can confidently say I'm not taking a trade unless this exact setup appears and every item on my checklist is met, all right? So if you don't have that, then it becomes very hard to be disciplined and committed to something, all right? Because you're going into everything trading off of emotion. All right, so without that foundation, staying disciplined isn't just hard, it's pretty much impossible, like I had said. So if a dog is a man's best friend, then a trading journal should be a trader's most trusted companion. All right, so I watch a lot of UFC. So if you see some of the top UFC fighters, or if you look at any UFC fighter, one thing that they all have in common, they all have a corner, right? So a UFC fighter is going out there and the first round he's getting beat up bad, right? He's expecting his corner to see where he's messing up. So when he comes back for that small break they have within rounds, they're going to let him know, like, look, you need to slip the left, and when you slip the left, he's leaning a little too forward on his right leg, and you have the ability for a double takedown. These are things that he should be able to get when he goes to his corner. Trading journal is the exact same thing, right? So whenever you're in drawdown and lose a big trade, take a look at your trading journal for a previous time you were in this situation, all right, and how long it took to come out of it, because that extra reassurance and emotional help is what a trading journal should be used for, and is definitely going to help you on those times when you have a bad day or a bad week or even a bad month. All right, so it definitely help prevent tilt, because you see, like, hey, last time I was on tilt, it only took me about this long to get out of this drawdown, or it only took me about the next 2-3 trades to get me out of this big loss. I'll be fine. All right, so I'm gonna just call it a day so I don't dig myself deeper in the hole, because my journal is telling me that over these next 3 days I should be good. All right, so in order to do this, you got to pick one strategy, journal every trade, study results, and then you want to refine it over time. All right. So the best in the world are experts of one. So I previously played college football, all right, and I got to play with a lot of good players. All right, I played at Cal, Go Bears. If you look at the best athletes in the world, and they're all playing just one position. So you have Tom Brady, one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback ever, all right, in my opinion. He only played quarterback. Ed Reed, best safety in the NFL history, only played safety. Tyreek Hill, mainly just plays receiver, all right? Jared Goff, strictly quarterback. You don't see him trying to play running back. You don't see him at receiver. Cam Bynum, free safety, only plays safety. Fred Warner, mainly plays linebacker, all right? These are all past players and current players who are all highly respected in their positions, all right? Now, what made them great wasn't just raw talent alone, but their commitment obviously to one single role, all right? So they chose one position and they dedicate themselves to that position, and then that way they become experts in that one position, all right? So a lot of high school athletes, if you played any sports, if you played football, we'll just stick with football. If you played high school football, you understand most of the star players in high school played both ways of the ball, right? They played offense and then they played defense. And then once you move on to Division I, if you have the opportunity to play Division I, you have to pick. You can't play quarterback and safety. It's not going down that way. You can't play receiver and corner. Yes, you do have your rare occasions of a player playing both ways in Division I, as for example Travis Hunter. But when you get to the NFL, you're gonna have to pick one. And if you don't, over time, you will understand that you have to pick one, right? So the reason why is because, let's say you want to become the greatest quarterback in the world, all right? The best quarterback the NFL has ever seen. In order for you to do that, you can't be playing QB and receiver, right? Because while you're splitting up your time and you're practicing 4 hours on quarterback and then the next 4 hours you're doing receiver, you have one person who's doing all 8 hours on one specific position, all right? So it's going to be very hard to beat out your competition if you're splitting your time amongst different interests instead of just honing in on one. All right, so greatness doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing one thing every day without the need for instant results and staying committed for the long haul. I think Alex Hormozi said it best. Being able to stick with one thing over a long period of time makes it impossible to fail, right? So if you measure things on a long time horizon, if you say, I'm going to stick with this one strategy for 10 years, the chances of you failing are slim to none, right? And you're like, I'm going to journal every trade. I'm going to journal my emotions for every single trade. I'm going to refine my trade. I'm going to review my trades at the middle of the week and the end of the week. And then I'm going to note what went wrong, figure out what they all share in common, and then I'll make adjustments where I see fit. And I'm going to do this every single week, every day for the next 10 years. It's going to be impossible to fail at that point, right? So if you just stick with one strategy and do that over a long enough time horizon, you will see results. It's just that people don't have the stick-wittedness, I made that word up, to do so and stick with one thing for that long. All right, so it's very easy to beat out the competition because the competition is jumping from strategy to strategy to strategy, trying to find their own holy grail when they don't understand that the holy grail is made within one strategy, and it's not made on the charts. It's made into what you do before and after the charts. All right, so now let's just take some action, give you some homework to do. All right, now going over all of this, all right, now I'm pretty sure you want to know how you can start taking action and creating your own Holy Grail system, or just putting all this into action. So step one, I would always recommend setting a goal. All right, choose one specific and measurable goal to achieve by the end of the year. All right, because we do have, I believe, 160 days left in the year. All right, so you can set you a small enough goal to challenge yourself to achieve by the end of the year. All right, so it could be pass your first eval, or let's say it could be earn 10,000 in payouts. All right, now if you already have some type of results or achieve some type of payouts, then this would be a decent goal to have. if you haven't received your first payout yet, then let's just focus on getting your first payout. That can be a good goal. So I would advise, if you haven't got your first payout, let's do get my first payout before the year ends. Write it down on a post-it note and stick it on your desk or your computer, so that way every morning or every evening, whenever your trading session is, you see that post-it note, and it will remind you pretty much what the plan is over these next couple months. All right, and then I want you to pick one strategy if you haven't already. I'm not going to tell you what strategy to pick. That's totally up to you. All right, so commit to one strategy that fits your style. Schedule and psychology. I obviously had a previous video going over that, so check that video out too. And then the hardest thing that it's going to be for most people is no switching. All right, so don't switch the strategy, right? When things get hard, when, let's say, if you have if you lose the first 2-3 weeks, don't get a single trade. That's totally fine. Your goal is to just collect data. All right, we're going to collect enough data because we want to get to at least like 100 to 200 trades in our journal playbook, and then we're going to refine, and then we'll just keep doing so. All right, so you don't need to really worry about going live. Right now we just want to focus on back testing and getting the data filled up in our journal. So that brings us into the next one. So you want to pick a back testing tool. All right, the platform that I use for back testing is TradeZella. They have a back testing software that I like. You can use TradingView, you can use FX Replay if you would like, but I personally like TradeZella. It's for traders, made by traders, and so I would recommend going with them. I have no affiliation with them at all. It's just one that I use. All right, so, and then you want to back test your data for the last 2 to 3 years. You can go further back if you would like, totally up to you. But I normally just do like the last 2 to 3 years. Around that time, I should be able to get enough setups to have a good analysis and make my adjustments wherever I see fit. All right, so you want to focus on finding A+ setups only. All right, so your absolute best entries, or the entries that you feel are the best. All right, and then you want to journal each and every one of those entries. All right, so if I show you a good example of what those, here we go. If I show you a good example of what those trades will look like. All right, so if where is it at? Okay, so as you can see, I have some here. All right, I have a bunch here. I have a bunch here. All right, so you also want to just make sure that you're journaling them. Write detailed notes, screenshot them. Get as detailed as you can. All right, so you want to make sure that you're getting the entries, how many contracts you entered with, why your stop loss was where it was at, why your exit was where it was at. All right, the confluences. You want to write the outcome of the trade. You want to write your emotions on the trade. All right, if you are back testing, but if you did feel any emotions during those trades, and let's say that you ended up reversing the back testing and to close it early, right? Because you were like, hey, I would have taken profit there. That's not true. All right, so be honest with yourself and your back testing setups. All right, and then you want to aim for at least 50 high quality trades. All right, so once you get those 50 high quality trades, you want to analyze the common traits that they all have. Right, so are they all in the New York session? Are they all in the London session? Do they all use order blocks? Do they use FVGs? Do they use inverse fair value gaps? Whatever PD array that you want to use, do they all have the same type of entry? All right, so I know I have different type of entries that I use. All right, and I understand some have a higher win rate than others. All right, and then let's say a majority of them are buys, or a majority of them are sells. All right, now do you feel more comfortable taking sells? Are you a bearish trader, or do you are you more comfortable taking buys? Do you prefer to be a more bullish trader and just going with the trend, depending on where it is? All right, you can also write that down. Were they going against the trend? Were they going with the trend or against the trend? All right, so these are all things that you can enter into your data. All right, and then specific times of days. All right, and then once you kind of have that, you want to understand what all of them have in common. And then you want to create a checklist off of that criteria. All right, and then with that criteria, you'll have your entries, exits, the best session times for you to trade, your risk management parameters. All right, so if you want to make 1 to 2, you want to risk 250 to make 500, or however much you're willing to trade. All right, you want to have your risk management parameters. And for the backtesting software, or for the backtesting session, I always try and recommend to have a set risk and reward. So 1 to 2, 1 to 1, whatever it is, so that way you can kind of have a good understanding of your strike rate. All right, so, and then once you do that, then you can kind of refine it as you go, and kind of go for wherever liquidity's at. All right, so that way, starting out, you can say I'm gonna strictly focus on getting 1-to-1 trades because I understand I have a 85% win rate, or a 1-to-1 or 1 to 2 because I understand I have a 70% win rate. Right, whichever one works best for you. All right, and then you want to continue backtesting with your playbook. So now backtest using your playbook as a guide. So once you create that checklist, you want to continue backtesting strictly off of that checklist. All right, so for example, you're like, I need a trend line. I need that trend line to break. I need it to be, I need to be going with a bias. All right, I need to trade into a FEG or IFEG, whatever it is you guys want to trade. All right, and I'm going for a 1-to-1 or 1 to 2. All right, or if I'm going to a 1-to-1, I'm doing 2 contracts. If I'm going 1 to 2, I'm going 1 contract. All right, and then you just want to refine your strategy as you go. All right, so adjust only based on patterns and not emotions. Okay, so if you understand that after you do your playbook, that trend lines aren't the best thing that works for you, all right, or maybe order blocks don't work as well as the IFEGs, then you can adjust where you see fit. All right, so by the end you should be able to by the end of your backtesting phase, you should be able to clearly know your average drawdown periods, your risk to reward ratio, time of day performance, most profitable setups or entries. All right, now let's say if you're going for 1 to 2, right, and then let's say you are doing a trailing stop loss, and a majority of your trades are getting out, you're getting about 1.2 R. All right, then you understand that if you were to move your risk reward to a 1-to-1, the chances of your win rate skyrocketing are pretty high. All right, because you know that a majority of your trades, when it does hit your trailing stop loss, are coming out about a 1 to 2. All right, so that's how you can use that data to improve your trading sessions and improve your win rate. All right, and then once you do this, once your system is proven through data, I always advise to purchase a prop firm evaluation. You could purchase any prop firm that you would like. I personally trade with Top Step. All right, but you can use Top One as well. They're good, whichever one you prefer. All right, but that way you kind of have some skin in the game. All right, it can be a small account. It could be a 5K, 25K. I normally just do 50Ks. Whichever one you would like to do, it's totally fine. But as long as you're spending some type of money, so you have some type of skin in the game, so that way when you do trade, some type of emotions are showing in the market. All right, so you want to trade your strategy under live conditions with real stakes. All right, so that way you can understand how your emotions now play into the strategy. And then while you're doing so, you want to continue journaling every single trade during this phase, because this is where the emotional management meets system execution. All right, so you want to journal how you're feeling within those trades. All right, were you anxious? Were you comfortable? Right, rate your confidence between each trade. All right, so that way you can understand that which ones you're more so confident with. All right, and then let's say you're not so confident when you are adding on multiple contracts, and you're a lot more comfortable when you have 1 or 2 contracts on the line, then you know that you need to stick with 1 or 2 contracts, so that way you're less anxious, and that way you can focus strictly on your setups and going into the market with a clear head. All right, so this is the power of one, and why you should stick to one strategy. Now I'll definitely attach this Google Doc in the description, so if you all do want to hang on to this, you can, and revert back to it, you can. Now I definitely do recommend taking action on these last steps. All right, so if you want to adjust or add anything to these steps, go ahead wherever you see fit, as long as you all are creating that journal and sticking to one strategy over a long period of time. All right, so we're halfway through the end of the year. Stick to one strategy for the second half and finish off strong. Wishing you all the best in your trading journey. Peace.